Sorry, we are running a couple of minutes late over here. Okay, so we are on. We're learning Nishas Bracha V'Srav Yehuda. We are on Gemorah Brachos. Sorry, I keep saying Brachos. We're succah. Daf Gimel Amud. We are on the bottom of Gimel Amud Aleph. Approximately. How many lines from the bottom? Hold on. We are about 4 lines from the bottom. Man Tana Laha. Who is the author of the Mishnah? The Tana Rabbanan that says in the Mishnah, B'She'en B'Yarba L'Arba Amos, put them in the mezuzah. You do not need to put it in the mezuzah. So, what's the rule? You have to put a mezuzah on mezuzah's beisecha v'sharecha. There's a mitzvah to put a mezuzah on every door, on every gate you have. So the question is who is the author of this Mishnah? Who is the one that said you don't need to put a mezuzah on your door if your house is less than arba amos, umin a micah, and a house that isn't 4x4 doesn't need to have a micah, doesn't need to have a fence, again, a wall. So again, the Mishnah, we saw 2 brises. Whether a sukkah has to have arba amos al arba amos, that was divrei Rebbe. Beisilil, Beishamai say it's got to be 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim. But according to Rebbe, it has to be 4 amos by 4 amos. So the Mishnah wants to know here, we have a Mishnah. The Mishnah says that any house, any structure, that isn't arba amos al arba amos, it's not 4 feet by 4 feet, you don't need to put it in a mezuzah. It's not called a house. You don't need to put it in a mezuzah. You don't need to put it in a micah. In other words, every house, you have a roof, you've got to put a micah on in order that no one falls off the roof. The house doesn't become tumas negoyim. If there's tsaras develops on the house is not tameh. Ve'ein nichled bebotei arechayma. This is a less known din. Rashi explains, what's the din of nichled bebotei arechayma? So, the Torah says when you sell a house, you sell a field, in Eretz Yisrael, you sell a field, every yovel, shalom aleichem, every yovel, the fields go back. And there's a reason behind this. The original owners always get the field, it stays in Shevet. It always goes back. Your kids, your grandkids will end up in the same field. People are always working on the field that their great-grandparents worked on. If you ruin the field, your great-grandkids are going to suffer from it because the field's coming back to you. You sell it, it's coming back. Every yovel. And there's other reasons. That's the time of the crop, why the Torah would be makbid on these things. Others say, I heard an opinion that you're not supposed to be able to sell your field. Hashem wants people to live in fields, not in big cities, in rural, not urban. And therefore, if you buy a field from a guy, you're going to build a bunch of houses, and 20 years later, the end of Yovel, it all goes back to this guy. So you wasted your money. So the idea is that you don't build the cities where there aren't supposed to be cities. There's supposed to be fields in certain areas, and other places are cities. But where there are cities, in the Botei Arechayma, these walled cities, where it's not a field. So what's it then? If you sell your house to someone, so you have 1 year to say, I want my money back. I want my house back. Take the money to be paid to redeem your house. You sell a house, you've got a year to get it back. But that's only if it's a house. If it's arba al arba, if it's 4x4, that's considered a house. Anything less than that, if you sell a shed, you can't ask for your shed back. But if it's arba al arba, not. So what's going to be the din if it's less than arba al arba? It's like a regular karka. It's like karka, at the end of Yovel, you'll get it back, I guess. That's how Rashi explains what's going on over there. You can't redeem it like a house in an Yerushalayim, a walled city. You don't go back from it from war. What's the din of war? Also, this is a pretty famous din. If you built a house, you don't have to go to war. Who's the man that built the house? Go back home. We want soldiers who are not worried about what's going to happen to their property. So, you do a one scared soldier, you can scare off thousands of soldiers. If a guy just got married, he just built a house, he doesn't have to go to war, he doesn't go to battle. He's not allowed to go to battle, even if he wants to, I don't think. So therefore, he built this little house, but it's less than 4x4 amas. Do you go back from war? No. That's not called, he's not that worried about his 3x3 feet house. That's not called a house. 4x4 is considered a house. Ve'ein ma'arvin by. What's this then? Ve'ein ma'arvin by. You don't do an erev. So let's see Rashi. Rashi's going to explain what we talk about over here. Ve'ein ma'arvin by. Says Rashi. Derech bateim liyas psuchim l'chotzer. The houses used to have a chotzer in front. Rashi's explaining what used to happen. Shalom. Hi. People's houses used to have a front yard, like we have now. Some houses have a front yard. The house isn't directly in front of the street. They've got a front yard called a chotzer. And what would happen in those days is many houses would share one front yard. Nowadays, it's more common in let's say, with big buildings, apartment buildings, or big offices, a few buildings share like a garden area with benches and trees. In those days, a few houses would share one front yard. So what would happen? Says Rashi, you get to the main street through your front garden. So you got a few houses. This is the picture. You got 4 houses. There's one shared area, front garden, front yard, and from there they got to the street. So says Rashi, Nimsa chotzer reshus lekulon. So this area is a shared area. This is a group-owned property. They all own part of this front yard. These 4 houses all own a quarter of the front yard. But each house belongs to its own owner, right? The rabbi said, you got to, in order to carry on Shabbos from one house to the other, they've all got to have a pcheleg, they've all got to be partners in the whole thing. So how do you do that? How do you create some type of partnership between everyone that you can carry from one property to another property? Because the problem is you're not allowed to carry from one property to another property. So, or you can't carry into the chotzer. So what do? This is what you do. Says Rashi. Ein meitzin reshus reshus b'lay erev shir of kol reshus liyas reshus achad v'tiknu litten kol bayis shebachotzer pas. Each house that's attached to this front yard gives bread, puts bread down into one basket. You got one basket now sitting in the chotzer. We're going to see you got to put it in the house, but now we think you put it in the chotzer. You have a basket in the chotzer in the front yard with 4 loaves of bread. Now Rashi says, you put it in one of the houses, and since they all own bread in that one house, so they all now have a reason to go into the house. They're all kind of partners in a house. We call a batim diracha. So now that means, that means now that all the houses unites all the houses. All the houses become one house, kilu. It's as if they're all partners now. So says Rashi. So what's going on over here? Vashmin and Hacha, and here we're learning the Bayish Ein Boy Dala in Tzarch Litin Esapas. If one of those houses is very small, it's 3x3, it's 2x2, he does not have to give bread in order to carry. It's not considered he's got his own house. So that's the din of Ein Ma'arvim Boy. Next in Ve'Ein Mishtatvim Boy. What does this mean? Ein Mishtatvim Boy. This is a very similar din, not to be confused. Says Rashi, Ein Mishtatvim Boy. You think a Chum Kol Chotzes Psucha Lemovoi Kedach Shtik Noev Lebate Chotzer. The rabbis made the same takana in the case where you've got multiple people that share a chatzar, but you've got multiple chatzeros attached to a mavoi. So, the case we just spoke about, you've got several people sharing a front garden. But then you've got several of these front gardens. You've got, on one side here, you've got 4 houses sharing a chatzar. On this side, you've got several houses sharing a chatzar. On this side, you've got several houses sharing a front garden. So you've got 3 front gardens now, and they're all attached to a cul-de-sac, to this road, to a pathway in the middle, right? Which is a road for these 12 houses. You got 4, 8, 12 houses. You've got 3 front gardens, but you've got 1 road in the middle. That's called a mavoi, a cul-de-sac, a one-way street, a dead end, a no exit road, right? So what happens? Now they want to carry in this mavoi. You've got 12 houses, 3 front gardens. They all want to carry in this area on Shabbos. What do? You do the same thing. You share bread. You want to connect the chatzeros as if all the chatzeros is one big chatzer, as if all the front yards are one big front yard. So what do you have to do? Now you don't need to use bread here, because bread is for a house. A house needs bread, but they got to put some type of food down. So says Rashi, and let's say one of those houses that's connected to this street is a small house, right? This little house doesn't have to put food down in order that you can carry in this mavoi on Shabbos. Says gemorah, just like he doesn't have to give food. If you put food in that house, if you put food in the house, it doesn't count. It doesn't work. That's still called you put it in the house. You take food now from these 12 houses, you put it in this little shed. It doesn't count. It's going to be in a house. And less than 4 feet by 4 feet, that's not called a house. So it doesn't work. And there's one last turn the page. Ve'ein eisen eisai ibur ben shtei yorais. Ve'ein achem ashitten cholkim bay. So before we see these last 2 dinim, let's take a look at Taisus. So Gemara here brings a few cases. A few of the connotations of the fact that a house has to be 4 feet by 4 feet. We saw you don't put a mezuzah, you don't have to build a mica, it doesn't become impure, you don't have to, if you sold it, you can't buy it back within the year. If you built a house like that, it doesn't get you a tour from going to the army. Okay, so it says Taisus. Take a look in the second to bottom Taisus, very interesting. It says Taisus, Baishem b'daladavas b'yushalmi chashiv shein toivel meiser. Yushalmi brings the same dinim, but he adds something, ain't toivel meiser. What does that mean? That you only have to, when you bring in crop, it's not chayiv insurance and meiser until you bring it through the front door, right? You have to bring it through the front door of your house. But if you didn't bring it through your house, if your house wasn't 4x4, that's not called, you brought it into your house, you're not chayiv insurance and meiser on it. That's the first din. Says Rishonim, there's another din that doesn't say. There's another din. If a girl cheats on her husband, but she's not yet fully married, she's engaged, she's biblically engaged, meaning she did Kiddushin, but she didn't do Eresin. She's gone through the first stage, she's engaged biblically, she's not allowed to cheat on her husband. So the Torah says you take her in front of her father's house to exact the punishment. But that's only if the father has a house that's 4x4. If the father's living in a shed 3x3, that's not called a house. She can't get punished. The father doesn't have a house. So Taisha says, besides those are the 2 extra things that Yerushalmi adds. Says Taisha, I'll give you more than besides that. It should have said Le'ini Pesach Beisav. Sorry. It should have added Pesach Beisav Moros. It didn't add that. The Yerushalmi added another din. If you take a nether, you take a shvua. I'm not going to go into a house. Are you allowed to go into this 3x3 house? Yes, says Yerushalmi. Taisha added that big chiddush that if a girl who's engaged cheats on her husband, she does not. If the father doesn't have to have a house that's 4x4, she doesn't deserve any punishment. She doesn't get any punishment. Says gemorah. Turn the page. What's this thing, right? What's going on over here? People don't know this. There's a rule in the Torah that you can't carry on Shabbos outside your city more than $2,000. You can't carry more than $2,000. You can't walk out of your city more than $2,000. Of course you can't carry. You can't even walk past your city 2,000 feet, right? What happens if you've got a bunch of houses here and a bunch of houses here? What's considered the city? Who does the zoning? How does it work, right? So the answer is that if these two houses, you've got a bunch of houses, if they're within 140 feet of each other, then that's considered one city. If the cities, if you've got houses here and houses here, and there's 140 feet between the two, that's already two little villages. It's not a big city. So what do? You want to be able to carry, you want to be able to walk from one half of your town to the other half of the town. If there's a hut between the two areas of the town, that's an ibur, that connects them. Ibur, like pregnancy, Rashi says, it's like you have a woman, she's got ibur, it's sticking out. So the town, here's the town, all the houses are next to each other. In those days, it looks like the houses were very cramped. It wasn't like you have there in Texas, wherever you are, right? People lived in houses like nowadays in Beit Shemesh. People live in houses, the next house is 3 feet from you. It's 10 feet. It's not 140 feet from you. That's called already a different area. That's Ramat Beit Shemesh Dalet. That's a different neighborhood, right? So are you allowed to walk out from your town, from your half of town to the other half? So if you have a house in the middle, then that connects the whole thing. It's one big house. It's one big town, I mean. But that's only if the house is 4x4. If you just put a little tent over there, 2x2, that's not called a house. So again, you've got 50 buildings here, 50 buildings here, and in between you've got 130 feet, right? You put a house in the middle, if it's 130 feet away, and now you're allowed to walk through the whole thing. It's all one big town. You could have houses all over the place, over miles and miles. You're allowed to walk everywhere as long as you don't have 140 feet. Now, if between the two you've got more than 140 feet, they're 150 feet away, that won't help. You have to be at least 70 feet in order to get to that house in the middle. You can't be more than 70 feet away. All right? That's how Rashi explains it. It's not exactly 70 feet. It's 70 feet in a third. Okay. So, this little 2x2 shed, that can't be the extension of the town. If two brothers, now what's the difference? Two brothers share a father who dies, and they inherit a house. So look, at the moment, the Gemara is going to change its mind. You don't split the house if it's less than 4x4. In other words, if they inherit a huge house, 50 meters by 50 meters, split it down the middle, you get 25, I get 25, everyone's happy, right? Everyone gets half the house. But what happens if it's a tiny house? They inherit a house that's 4x4, you split it, each one gets 2x2, or 2x4 rather. That's pointless. What are you going to do with 2x4? You need 4x4 to be a house, right? So what you do with it, I don't know, rent it out, buy each other out, but you don't split it. You can't force a split because you don't want a 2x2 or 2x4. That doesn't do anything for you, right? So Gemara says, who is the author of this Mishnah that listed all these dinim for a house? So a house has to be 4 meters by 4 meters. The answer is Lema Rebbe. Should we assume that this is Rebbe V'lo Rabbanan? this is Rebbe, and this is not Rabbanan, this is not the holy rabbis. Afilu Tamer Rabbanan. No, you could even say that this is the rabbis. Why? Even though, so why by sukkah do they say a sukkah you don't need 4x4? You see from here, the house is 4x4. Less than 4x4, that's not called a house. How are you going to understand this? Afilu Tamer Rabbanan. You could say it's the Rabbanan. The reason why a sukkah does not need to be 4x4 is because the sukkah has to be, it's a diras arai. We're going to see it's a big machlekes whether the sukkah is supposed to be temporary or permanent. The sukkah itself is supposed to be according to Rabbanan temporary. It's not supposed to be permanent, and therefore you're allowed to make a sukkah less than 4x4 because the whole point of it is it's temporary. 4x4 is a permanent house. And all these did about putting a mezuzah on your house, building a mica, the house becoming tomei, going back from Milchama, all these dinim, that's only if it's permanent. But this over here is temporary. And therefore temporary doesn't have to be 4x4. So if it's but all the other rules which are talking about a house, the diras kval, and all those rules apply to a permanent house, I feel the Rabbanan will also agree that you need to have 4x4. Only a house that's 4 feet by 4 feet can someone live in. A house that's not 4 feet by 4 feet, you can't live in. It's not fitting to be a house. Okay? Hold on. Well, it's true. We know that people lived in tents back in those days. Good question. I like it. People lived in tents. But the tent was bigger than 4 feet by 4 feet. It doesn't say how high it has to be. And first of all, you can have very high tents. But a tent has to be 4 feet by 4 feet in order for it to have a mezuzah, to be chayiv. It can't be a small tent like we have nowadays. You buy a meter by meter. 4 feet is 2 meter tents. Even nowadays, they sell nice tents. I think a standard 6-man tent is exactly 4 feet by 4 feet. So they had tents that were 4 feet by 4 feet. It's a house. Good question. I like it. Keep them coming. Says the gemorah. And this is already a whole new suggah, a whole new member. He's listing all the dinim we mentioned till now. My timer. Why do all these rules not apply if you've got a small house? The bias, if it's all these things, bias. The Torah uses the lashon bias. Kisivne bias. A mezuzah beisecha. You got a mezuzah on your house, right? The bias typical. That's why all these dinim apply. It says in Torah bias. And what about in ma'arvim boy v'mishtatim boy v'minichim boyer of my timer? Why do all these dinim which are drabanon apply? You can't do an eruv, you don't put the food down, you can't put it in the house. So why over there, it doesn't say bias midarbanan. And the answer is, you're right. It doesn't say it has to be a house, but you can't live in such a place. So the Chazal made the takanas, the rabbis made their rules based on whether you could live in a house or not, whether it's livable. You can't live in a 3x3, 4x4 you can live in. Veimar, so says the gemorah, Eruv chatzeres. Ein menichim by, aval shitav menichim by. Says the gemorah, when you do eruv chatzeres, you don't put it inside in the chatzer. Aval shitav menichim by. My timer. Sorry, hold on. Okay, I think we're going to have to do this tomorrow. It's already a whole new sugya about Erev Chatzeres. When you do put the Erev down, when you don't. Hold on. It's a bit of a long sugya, so we're going to leave it for tomorrow. I don't want to chop it up into two parts. All right, so we're going to end over here. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a wonderful day. All the best. Mm-hmm.